Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 697 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our ninth book just came out. It's called From Letters to Leaders, The Legacy of Service. So I want you to go and pick up that book on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I do love talking about disabilities on our show because there are so many college students on college campuses that have various forms of disabilities. And I want us to start thinking about how we, as members of fraternities and sororities, can become more attractive to students who have disabilities going forward. Let's talk a little bit to our next guest. Jane Fischer is a wife, a mother of 3 adult children, and grandmother of 4. She has been married to her husband, Al, for more than 50 years. That is absolutely incredible. Congratulations. He taught elementary school before deciding to stay home and raise her children. After 20 years, she earned a master's degree in special education from Montclair University with certifications as teacher of the handicapped and a learning consultant. Jane felt strongly that children with special needs have an opportunity to attend religious school, so she spearheaded the formation of a special class in her temple. Suzy was the first child to be Bat-Mitzvahed in the class, which I absolutely love. And Jane is very involved with something called the Jespy House, which is a nonprofit organization that enables adults who have intellectual and developmental disabilities to lead independent lives. So Jane and Al purchased a home in 2004 for Suzy and 4 other Jespy clients, which enabled them to live an independent life with the necessary support that they needed. Today, Suzy lives in a condo with adult supervision. Welcome to the show, Jane.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. And listen, I love your story. I think it's absolutely incredible. So I want to understand your journey because originally you started out as an elementary school teacher, then you went to a special education advocate, and now all of a sudden you're an author. So talk about that journey.
Okay, and it has been just that a journey. Uh, I've always loved children. I've always played, when I was younger, I played school all the time. And then, of course, went on to go to college and became an elementary school teacher, which I loved. I taught first, fourth, third grade for many years. And then I had my own family. So I went on a little bit of tenure and I raised my children. And I have 3 children. My oldest, my first daughter, Beth, um, was 2.5 years old when Susie was born. And of course, that's when the second part of my life began. Susie was born, when we'll talk more about this, with disabilities. And I became entrenched in the world of special education, I decided that I wanted to go back at my teacher of the handicap. I have to be honest, I've always been a crusader of the underdog. Even when I remember being in elementary school, I was the one who befriended, the child who had no friends. It was always just part of who I am, I suppose, and what I wanted to be. And I went on, got my teacher of the handicapped, worked with handicapped children, and then I decided that's not enough. So I'll go back from get my master's in special education, and then became a learning consultant, which is a member of a child study team who tests children and determines if there are disabilities, what can we do about helping those children in school, developing an IEP, an individualized educational plan. And that's what I've done for the last 25 years, is working with children, with families who have special needs, any kind of a unique need. And that's, I just retired about a few years ago because age crept up with me and technology did me in.
Well, hey, listen, we're all going to retire at some point. I figure I'm probably going to retire too at some age. I don't know when that is, but I guess when it's time. But I do appreciate all the work that you put in over a lifetime, especially to the special needs. I love that you root for the underdog and you look out for those people. You seek them out. to befriend them and to make sure that they have all the resources that they need to be successful. And I think that's very admirable. I think we all need to be taking, a note from your career and start thinking about what does that mean for us and how can we do similar types of things. And, I want to talk a little bit more about Suzy because this is just an incredible story because not everybody who's listening to this podcast has read your book yet. The book is called If You Knew Suzy. So tell us, more about Suzy. Why do you think Suzy's story has the power to change the way that people think?
Exactly why I wrote her book. It's called If You Knew Suzy, Pushing Past the Boundaries of Never. And it exactly started that way. As I say, I had a 2.5-year-old baby at home. I was 24 years old. For the most part, I had a perfectly normal pregnancy. There was no reason to worry. And Suzy was born on July 18th, 1974. And from minute one. Now, I didn't know from minute one because back then husbands weren't in the room and, it became an emergency. So I was given anesthesia. But she was born with extra digits on both hands, which in and of itself is just a unique finding, and they were removed the next day. But there was a syndrome going on. She had a poor suck. Her head was out of proportion with her body. For the first 3 months of her life, we didn't know if she had any sight because she couldn't follow light. And every day, someone was telling me about something else that was wrong. And when we started the journey of going to doctors, and this is where our story really begins, we were told by some of the most renowned pediatric neurologists that she was significantly brain damaged and that she would never walk, talk, or learn. We were pretty much told that juncture back in 1974 that it might be best to find a residential placement because I had a 2.5-year-old and I had a husband and I should go on with my life. And I as I say, I didn't know anything about special education or babies, so to speak, having special needs, but I knew my baby was not going to a residential placement. I knew somehow inherently that whatever she could do, whatever potential was there, we were going to find it and we were going to maximize it. Now, again, Michael, and I'll just leave you with this thought, and all the college students who have no idea what it was like not to have a Google. I couldn't go home and Google it. There were no cell phones. I use that old fashioned, and most of the listeners probably don't even know what a yellow pages is.
They don't know what that is.
They don't know what that means, but that's where I was in 1974. And that's how I had to find out, where to begin. And one phone call led to another, and I finally found an infant stimulation program, which we could. I don't want to monopolize the conversation. That's how we started. I knew I could buy stock in Kleenex and cry for the rest of her life or mine, or begin to fight.
Wow, good for you.
And I didn't know what that meant, but I knew we were going to start fighting to help my baby be everything she was meant to be.
Well, let's talk about that fight, right? I mean, you were given a whole bunch of predictions from the doctors, and you decided to fight. And I think there's something about that because you say predictions are not promises. So, what
Exactly.
did you mean by that statement, and how has that philosophy guided your family?
That is our mantra. And that is what I'm hoping the audience will take away. In all due respect to the medical profession, and we need tests and we need pictures and but there's no crystal ball. Nobody can Suzy was sentenced. She was sentenced to a lifetime of nevers by good men, good intentional men and women who thought they knew what her future was. But what they didn't know was this little being had the determination and tenacity and courage to fight this sentence in life. And that's what we started to do. As I say, there was there's a lot more services now, but there really wasn't anything then. There was no, now we have what we call early intervention programs. There wasn't anything like that. I was her early intervention program. And we started by, and again, my 2.5-year-old toddler, who didn't know she was probably the most important therapist in Suzy's life because she incorporated in everything, playing school, playing house, playing store. She was bombarded with stimulation. And my feeling is, and I have been validated by some of the doctors, is there was profuse brain damage, but by stimulating those transmitters that were intact, there's a lot of plasticity in the brain. And because we just didn't let her languish in a crib and say, well, she'll never do it, so just let her be, she really she knew what she should be doing, and she always strived. Yes, her milestones were late. They were late, but they happened. They happened. And what I will tell you, when we would go back to the doctors 6 months, a year later, they would look at her and say, oh my God, she's defied the books we've written as well as read. For all intents and purposes, she's a medical mystery. But she was walking, she was talking, albeit only I could understand her in the beginning. But it was language. It was language that was never supposed to happen. And Suzy is an incredible, incredible story because not only did she accomplish what she did, but she inspired everyone else to keep fighting.
That's
Because,
awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome. It really is an inspirational story. And I think about the college students today, and I'm sad to say that there are times when it just feels like the undergraduate students immediately give up when they get
yes,
their first hurdle. And you and I both know that life is difficult. You don't have to explain that to either one of us.
yes,
Difficult times, and you get over them. You climb
yes,
over those obstacles, and that's the only way to succeed in life. It's not going to be easy. Nobody ever
absolutely.
said that life is going to be easy. It's not easy.
Yes,
Anyone who tells you it is lying to you. So,
right.
so knowing all of that and understanding that, college students sometimes they just feel defeated after one setback. So, what would you tell somebody who feels like their life in college is not going according to plan?
I will tell them what I've told my own children. As I say, Susie has an older sister, 2.5, and she has a younger brother who has we've been through the college students, and things have not always gone their way. They've changed majors, they've had unfortunate relationships, they've been disappointed in classmates. I mean, we've been around the block. And what I tell them is not only are predictions not promises, but setbacks are not endings. And the truth of the matter is, and I know I sound like probably an old lady who's preaching. I was a college student once. I get it. It's you can have a lot of disappointment and feel like life is over. But some of those hardest moments in your life are the moments that will define you, that the moments that will give you the strength to move on and face other challenges. And I know Susie would say the same thing. If I would have allowed, and her whole life has been about setbacks, if she were allowed herself to give up, instead it made her stronger. She was that much more determined. Don't give up. Keep fighting. Find another way. Find another door to open. Find another road to travel. But don't give up. And learn. And most importantly, learn from it. I used to tell my kids all the time, if you make a mistake, we all do, but learn from it. Make it a meaningful mistake so that you could perhaps change course, and take away a different message. And in raising Susie and my other two children, because believe me, they've had their challenges, don't be a quitter. Find a way to reach down, find the strength to make that lesson become an opportunity.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah,
that's
I
my
think
message.
that's really important. I mean, I think today's college students are almost, too afraid to fail, too afraid to make mistakes, and mistakes are going to happen. But I've learned the biggest lessons in my life from the
Right.
mistakes that I made, not from the wins. The
Absolutely.
ones where I made a mistake. And I'm like, oh my God, what a lesson I've learned. And so, the other thing that I think about too is Susie's siblings, right? And
Yes.
you, and Al to a certain extent. I'm wondering what advice you give to siblings of somebody who has a disability. And this person may sometimes struggle with balancing love, responsibility, and their own needs.
Absolutely. And I worry about that too, a lot, almost every day. I've seen the impact that having a sibling with a disability can have. I have to tell you, Susie's very blessed. She has an incredible support system with her brother and her sister. But I also know I'm not blind, and it's taken a toll on them. And I'll give you a couple of examples. My daughter, who was involved in a serious relationship, and we live in New Jersey. And Susie will her support system is in New Jersey, and it just turned to her fiance had a wonderful opportunity in California. He was an attorney. He had a wonderful opportunity, and she said to me, "I can't go." I said, what do you mean you can't go?" She said, "Mom, you're not realistic. You're not going to live forever. I need to be here. I am going to be the caretaker." And I said to her, Beth, you can't give up your life. I want you to have a life. I want you to live it. And I don't want Susie to be the reason a wonderful opportunity perhaps is lost." And she said at that point, she said, "Look, Mom, the person I'm going to marry has to know that Susie is a priority to me. Not more important than him, but a priority. And he's going to have to make the choice. Either take the job in California or there's a lot of other jobs in New York, and I need to stay here to be ultimately, the overseer of Susie's care." Now, I was heartbroken because I didn't want her to make that kind of decision, but that's the kind of kids they are. That being said, I would say to siblings, as I've said to my own children, you have to live your life. You have to make a life. Some of the feelings you feel are normal, the guilt, perhaps, the angst to do the right thing for the whole family. But what I would like to see you do is make a life for yourself and incorporate Susie in that life best you can. And that's what I would want siblings to do. Not give up their life, not run away, make a life. And again, have your sibling part of that life, which is what they've done. Susie is a One of Susie's biggest pains has always been that she will not be able to have children and get married. So Ben and my son and Beth have made her a special Aunt Susie. She adores her nieces and her nephew, and they've made her feel very, very special. So live your life, validate your feelings, incorporate the sibling, and do the best you can to normalize however you can.
How did things turn out with Beth and the attorney?
Yeah, he actually made the decision to get a very wonderful job in New York.
Ah, he came to his senses. Great. That was the right decision. I was curious how that
It
turned.
was sure the right decision for her, but she bent it. And I'm not saying that that's what her decision was. I don't judge anyone else for perhaps making a different decision, but that's what worked for our family. And the other thing is that I have wonderful brothers with children who have also incorporated Susie in their lives, and it's not hard to incorporate Susie because she's such a love. But it's important. It takes a village, and
Yeah.
it's important for a whole family.
I like where you're going with this whole, incorporating thing. I think this is a really important idea here because we have a lot of fraternity and sorority members who are listening right now. And if there was like one thing that they could do to make their college campus more welcoming, more inclusive, in your words, for students who have disabilities, what would you hope that they would do?
Yes, well, I it's so important. And if I could just get one message out there, you know, if you can. you have no idea what it means to a student with a disability of any kind to be included, not to be tolerated, not to have just hit on your head and say, "Hi, how are you?" Don't look at that person as a disabled person. Don't put boundaries on them. Give them a chance. They might talk a little different. They might walk a little different. They might think a little different. But different doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Give them a chance to, and it doesn't mean you have to become a best friend. Go for an ice cream. Well, go for a soda. Go for a beer. You know whatever. I'm not. I know what college students do, but give them an opportunity to feel they have a friend, to be heard, to be respected. And it doesn't mean you have to do it every day, all day. But if you see someone sitting alone, if you see someone who perhaps just needs a friend, needs some kindness, you'd be surprised. You get it back. The reward is how good you will feel when you know you've made someone else feel accepted. And I can't emphasize enough, how much it means to Suzy, because we've been in this situation. And she has said to me, "Mom, can you believe that they came up to me, they talked to me?" And I said to her, "So of course they talk. You're a wonder." She said, "But it made me feel so good." And she will say, "I have feelings. I can feel sad and I can feel happy. And it makes me feel so happy to know that someone else wanted my company, wanted to be my friend." So take the opportunity to befriend, and you'll find your own niche, whatever population, wherever you feel comfortable, but take an opportunity to make someone else feel accepted and embraced.
That's really beautifully said. So thank you so much for sharing that, Jane. Obviously, your journey being an advocate for those with disabilities started, with Suzy. I mean, that's
Yes.
really kind of when the whole journey began. And not everyone necessarily has a Suzy in their life today. So, what advice do you have for college students who want to become advocates for those with disabilities, but they have no idea where to start?
Yes. Yes. Well, and unfortunately, we do live in a world of Google right now, so they don't have to go to the yellow pages. There are so many. You could start simply. It doesn't have to be big. You can volunteer at a preschool for disabled children if that's little ones are your interest. Or I will tell you what we started. We started at a special school for children. It's called Early Childhood Learning Center. We started a buddy program where we had kids from the high school. You would be, of course, from the college. And once a week or once a month, they volunteered to go and play basketball with the kids, or they volunteered to go in out for a lunch with the kids. You can call local schools, you can call not call, Google Easter Seals, Association for Children with Learning Disabilities. If you just Google wanting to volunteer with disabled individuals, whatever your interest is, the Google will open up and so many opportunities will happen. I mean, I'd be glad to help anyone out there because I'm going to give you my information. I don't know where the location is, but I will help you find places for individuals who want to just volunteer, however often they want to volunteer. But it means the world. And to those um, college students who are thinking of the world of education or medicine or, you know, um, legal pursuit, whatever that is, social work, um, it's a great time to start getting some hands-on experience in working with special needs individuals. So I would advocate.
That I think about often is caregivers, right? If we're talking about people with disabilities, we're thinking about obviously the American population is really kind of we have all these baby boomers and they're becoming elderly and they're going to need a lot of care. So I think about that, like what that looks like over the next 10, 20 years. I mean, that's a big population that we're going to need to take care of. But the
Absolutely.
caregivers, they often experience burnout, as you
Yes.
fully understand. So
Yes.
how did you take care of your own mental and emotional health while you were caring for Suzy?
Well, my children, with my two other children, probably say I wasn't always mentally stable. But what do they know? It was very hard, Michael. Between working and I had an elderly mom who I took care of, who was my wind beneath my wings, who was so incredibly wonderful to me and my children. Um, it's very hard. There were times I did. I wondered. I look back and wonder how I did it. But while I was doing it, just 1 minute at a time. I mean, I never had time for me. I have to admit, my marriage was, we are married 55 years, but there were many times he wanted to run out, and many times I did too. In fact, I did run out a couple of times. And we didn't have time for, if I had to say the one person in my life who probably was cheated, if you will, well, was probably my husband, because I didn't have the time. It was only 24 hours in a day and only one me. But he was a great guy, and he understood my need to take care and do everything I could for Susie. We haven't even touched upon, we talked about her special needs, but at 24 years old, Susie was diagnosed with kidney failure. And she's had two kidney transplants, and in between the transplants, she was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and she's had a total thyroidectomy. So we've had to devote a tremendous amount of time to helping her both with her special needs and medically, because she has been very challenged with many medical situations. And I guess, we all rallied around her, and I don't know how I did it, but and the other thing, and this is when you talk about setbacks, I, if my parents ever knew that I was going to do what I did years later, they would have said, she just doesn't have it in her. I was a very quiet, shy, kind of meek individual. And when Susie was born, the lioness in me, something was born within me that no one even knew was there, you know. And you talk about setbacks. One can interpret the birth of a handicapped child as a setback for a mother, a huge setback for a parent. But that setback put me on a journey that I never knew I was even capable. And we've made such a difference. We've started groups for socialization. We started groups at the temple for, she was the first Bat-Mitzvah. We've started groups, vocational training groups. Started a PTA for parents with children, exceptional children. I mean, the point, that setback charted me on a course that I never, ever knew I'd be traveling. So, um, I guess, how did I do it? I did it. I was driven. I was driven. And I wasn't going to let anyone sentence my daughter to a life of nevers.
Yeah.
And that's what we just one foot at a time. We fought. Suzy and I, her first song was "You and Me Against the World." Again, the college students, I'm sure, are too young. You can put it on Spotify.
On Spotify, you can find it.
You can
Susan's
find it.
an incredible person, and if she were sitting here with us today, what do you think she would want the college students to know?
I actually asked her. I told her I was going to do this podcast. She wanted to come on with me. I said next time. But she actually had some very good points. You have to meet her, Michael. She is so extraordinary, and people, and this is another thing. I'm glad I had the opportunity. For all of you who are going into education or whatever field you're in, don't judge someone on paper, by a paper report. Don't judge someone by an IQ score. Don't put limits and boundaries on what you think people can't do. Find a way to learn where they shine, where they excel. And we all do. We all have something about us. Suzy happened, if you looked at her IQ, and I will share a story, very quick story. When we were unfortunately, I was not able to donate my kidney to Susie. I was the wrong blood type. My husband has 8 kidney stones. He wasn't a donor. Talk about setbacks. So that was a huge setback that she had 2 parents who weren't able to give her a kidney. So we were going all over the country looking for to get her on donor lists, to get her on lists for kidney transplants. Anyway, we were sitting in New York at a very, very world-renowned nephrologist, kidney specialist. And we were sitting, and he wasn't looking at Susie because, after all, what could she understand? He had seen her IQ. And he was looking at my husband and myself, and he was giving us all the background information. And she raised her hand. And he looked at her and he said, "Yes, like, what is she asking me?" And she said, "Dr. Smith, suppose I don't want my sister's kidney. She's got to get married. She's got to have babies. I'm not taking her kidney. I'll go on dialysis." Well, he looked at me and he said, "Oh my God, I have Harvard graduates who don't say anything like that." He said, "Don't ever let anyone judge her from a piece of paper." And I looked at him and I said, "I never have, and I never will." And the point I'm trying to bring out is give people a chance. If don't look at the outside and decide, well, they can't blah 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 blah. Get to know them, get to meet them at their level, and you'd be surprised. You can learn a lot from them. And what Susie wanted me to, going back to your question, was just what I said. She said, "Tell people," and this I quote, "that I have feelings too, that I can feel sad, that I can feel happy, and that just give us a chance, give us a chance to be a friend." And I think that's, it's very simplistic and it's very basic, but it really speaks volumes, to
Mm.
befriend someone who is otherwise friendless,
Yeah, that's a great place to leave our conversation for today. So, if all of our listeners today want to rush out and buy your book, it's called If You Knew Suzy. Uh, where can they go to buy this book?
Okay, so this is Susie. As you can see, she is the most joyful person in the world. The book is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble websites. Um, I just think if it's a true testimony to the human spirit, and I think that all of you college students who are thinking of what to do or what profession to pick, you might even get some ideas, to when you read her story. And it's also a story that will hopefully propel you to never give up and never set limits, and just keep fighting, keep believing.
Yeah.
That's Susie's motto. Never say never.
That's fantastic. All right. The book is written by Jane Fischer, Fischer. The book is called If You Knew Suzy, and you can see what the cover looks like. So that way you can go and pick it up at Amazon or at Barnes& and Noble online. Jane, thank you so much for sharing the story of Suzy with us today. I think there's a lot of hidden nuggets here in all of this conversation that is very applicable to college students today. So thank you for sharing the story with us.
Thank you, and I just leave you, Michael, with this. There, by the grace of God, go I. And all of the college students should only be well and happy, but you never know when you're going to be sitting in this seat. Just always think of that. And my message is good luck to everyone and success to everyone.
There you go. A successful year ahead for all of our college students. We are wishing that to you. And if you learned something today from Jane, I want you to share this episode with your entire fraternity or sorority chapter because I think they need to hear it. So grab the link, put it into a group chat, share it on social media because you never know who needs to hear this message of Suzy today. Thank you so much to our listeners. We are going to
Thank
see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.